The National Guard of the United States is part of the reserve components of the United States Army and the United States Air Force. It is a military reserve force composed of National Guard military members or units of each state and the territories of Guam, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico, and the District of Columbia, for a total of 54 separate organizations. All members of the National Guard of the United States are also members of the organized militia of the United States as defined by 10 U.S.C. Section 246. National Guard units are under the dual control of the state governments and the federal government. The majority of National Guard soldiers and airmen hold a civilian job full-time while serving part-time as a National Guard member. These part-time guardsmen are augmented by a full-time cadre of active Guard and Reserve personnel in both the Army National Guard and Air National Guard, plus Army Reserve technicians in the Army National Guard and Air Reserve technicians in the Air National Guard. The National Guard is a joint activity of the United States Department of Defense composed of reserve components of the United States Army and the United States Air Force, the Army National Guard and the Air National Guard, respectively. Local militias were formed from the earliest English colonization of the Americas in 1607. The first colony-wide militia was formed by Massachusetts in 1636 by merging small older local units, and several National Guard units can be traced back to this militia. The various colonial militias became state militias when the United States became independent. The title, National Guard, was used in 1824 by some New York State militia units, named after the French National Guard in honor of the Marquis de Lafayette. National Guard became a standard nationwide militia title in 1903, and specifically indicated reserve forces under mixed state and federal control since 1933. In 1986, Congress passed the Montgomery Amendment, which prohibited state governors from withholding their consent to overseas deployments for training purposes. The Supreme Court upheld this law in 1990, ruling against Minnesota's governor in Papik v. Department of Defense. In 2006, Congress passed the 2007 National Defense Authorization Act, which gave the President the authority to mobilize National Guard units within the U.S. without the consent of state governors. The first muster of militia forces in what is today the United States took place on September 16, 1565, in the newly established Spanish military town of St. Augustine. The militia men were assigned to guard the expedition's supplies while their leader, Pedro Menendez de Avilés, took the regular troops north to attack the French settlement at Fort Caroline on the St. Johns River. This Spanish militia tradition and the English tradition that would be established to the north would provide the basic nucleus for colonial defense in the New World. The militia tradition continued with the first permanent English settlements in the New World. Jamestown Colony and the militia companies of a county formed a regiment. The first national laws regulating the militia were the Militia Acts of 1792. From the nation's founding through the early 1900s, the United States maintained only a minimal army and relied on state militias, directly related to the earlier colonial militias, to supply the majority of its troops. As a result of the Spanish-American War, Congress was called upon to reform and regulate the training and qualification of state militias. In 1903, With passage of the Dick Act, the predecessor to the modern-day National Guard was formed. It required the states to divide their militias into two sections. The law recommended the title, National Guard, for the first section, known as the Organized Militia, and Reserve Militia, for all others. During World War I, Congress passed the National Defense Act of 1916, which required the use of the term, National Guard, for the state militias and further regulated them. Congress also authorized the states to maintain home guards, which were reserve forces outside the National Guards being deployed by the federal government. In 1933, with passage of the National Guard Mobilization Act, Congress finalized the split between the National Guard and the traditional state militias by mandating that all federally funded soldiers take a dual enlistment commission and thus enter both the State National Guard and the National Guard of the United States. A newly created Federal Reserve Force, the National Defense Act of 1947, created the Air Force as a separate branch of the armed forces and concurrently created the Air National Guard of the United States as one of its reserve components. Mirroring the Army's structure, the National Guard of the several states, territories, and the District of Columbia serves as part of the first line of defense for the United States. The State National Guard is organized into units stat.